of the main two competitions, the opening film and the new media projects in DocLab. In the beginning, as I welcome everyone back to the cinemas, I have to take a moment to salute, to welcome and to honor all of our colleagues in the film world who went through a very rough time over the past 2 years. We know that many in the film world experienced the pandemic with a lot of difficulty. Many lost their work, many lost their health, lost loved ones, and to them, we say, you're not alone, we're all here together. We're not back full into a normal edition of IDFA, however, it's almost there. We will have cinemas, we will have an almost full occupancy rate in the cinemas, and then we will do an experiment of showing films in hybrid format. Every evening, IDFA will be offering the audience in Amsterdam the chance to watch a great film in Tuschinski cinema, but then also all across the country, they can watch the same film live from Tuschinski in their homes, and they can attend the talk that takes place after this film. Other than that, the program is going to be on-site almost completely. The industry side, the filmmaker activities, everything that is on the professional side of IDFA is going to be hybrid too. Many people are coming to IDFA. We're so proud of that. We're very much looking forward to meeting everyone in Amsterdam. And those who cannot come will be with us, and we are putting a massive effort into being able to welcome them online. All that said, let's begin. This year's poster and campaign come as a new fruit of the collaboration, the ongoing collaboration between IDFA and the creative agency. And this year, we worked together on a very interesting concept, I think, which is the Rorschach. This thing that we look at, this figure that we look at, and everyone defines who they are when they try to know what this is. Now, as part of the maybe new media or a new age of science and film and art connected to technology, we did that in a very special way. There was an AI developed so that it reads the films in our program, and it creates color-coded figures and shapes, turns them into a Rorschach figure that is actually an AI translation of the style of a film. I'll play the TV clip of the campaign so that we begin. So, this is the outcome of our new collaboration with We Are Pi, the creative agency. We thank them for their continuous partnership, and we now start by celebrating 15 years of DocLab. It's been 15 years since DocLab began, since IDFA started examining the ever-expanding world of new media art. It is documentary, but it is also technology. It is, at the bottom of it, a continuous experimentation, a continuous examination of how an artist can bring reality and technology together and create something magical, tell us something about the future of how we can approach reality. 15 years means that DocLab is more or less the very first of its kind in the world. Caspar Sonnen, the head of DocLab, is one of the leaders, of the thinkers behind this industry of new media. We are very proud to invite him now to tell us about the 15th Doc Lab program. Casper? Clicker?
Thank you.
This is
Thank you, Orwa. Thank you, Orwa. And thank you, entire DocLab team. This phase here is just part of a much larger team of people. Let's see, yes. So this year we're turning 15. And at 15, we can say new media is nothing new. But like human beings at 15, the interactive and immersive media world are going through an exciting and tumultuous phase as well. Suspended somewhere in between the infinite unknown and growing up artistically, finding new forms, new artists, new audiences across all kinds of platforms, from online, VR, public space, to theaters, cinemas, planetariums, and museums. At the same time, reality itself, I think as Orwa said, seems to be suspended on the threshold of a very tumultuous phase as well, on the threshold of something new maybe even. With the planet heating up, tech giants trying to escape to Mars or into fantastical visions of what some call the metaverse, everybody else seems stuck somewhere in between the old reality that we knew and a confusing post-COVID world. Within that context, we present this year's 15th edition around the theme Liminal Reality. With it, DocLab returns to Amsterdam with a special program and a celebration of ambiguity in life, tech, and art. Liminal Reality takes place across various locations, with exhibitions and installations in our main location, Tolhuistuin, but also in I and in A-Lab, and performances and live events across the Brakkegrond, Artis Planetarium, and the Tuschinski Theater. For those unable to attend, we offer a special online and a virtual reality program, as well as an online exhibition, live performances, and on the 24th of November, a very messed up metaverse party. More on that can be found online later today, but for now, we're very proud to present our official selection for 2021. We'll start with the 10 projects selected in the Immersive Nonfiction competition, followed by the 10 projects selected in the Digital Storytelling competition, and finally, a few highlights from the DocLab Spotlight program. So, first of all, the Immersive Nonfiction competition. This year's 10 projects selected include projects from Europe, Canada, the United States, but also productions and co-productions from artists in Georgia, China, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Let's do a quick walkthrough. This year's selection has projects that reinvent the collective experience inside virtual reality, but also physically in person, such as the immersive live performance Artificial Awakening by Jacob Lacour, or the transformative experience Post-Human Wombs by Anna Vries and Malou Peters. At the same time, we have projects that go beyond any type of sensory experience we've ever had, such as Symbiosis by Polymorph, a long-expected project which combines VR with food, smells, soft robotics, and the release of some neurotransmitters like oxytocin. At the same time, the Immersive Nonfiction selection also reveals the power of pure in-headset experiences, with incredibly powerful interactive documentary storytelling, such as Joanna Popinska's The Choice, or Diagnosia by Mengtai Zhang and Lemon Guo, which explores the Chinese internment camps for internet addicts. And also, of course, the unapologetical VR film Water and Colton, giving us a full 52-minute inside headset experience, and I think one of my favorite documentary VR films to date. At the same time, other artists are taking us into a more conceptual realm, such as The City That Was Asleep and It Had a Dream by the Georgian artist Mariam Natroshvili and Detu Jinkaraste, and Disarmed by Alexandra Barankova, Jay Paris, Luna Maurer, and Roel Wouters, returning with a VR project that explores what the human body can be in a future virtual world. And finally, we have 2 projects in the Immersive Nonfiction competition that combine the real world with the virtual world, turning it into an experience that provides something new, more than the sum of their parts. And these two projects are the Holographic Museum of Austerity by Sasha Wares and Messages to a Post-Human Earth by May Abdallah, a two-person outdoor experience that you can experience throughout the festival outside in the garden behind our main venue, Tolhuistuin. And that concludes the immersive nonfiction competition and brings us to the digital storytelling competition. Click, yes. Here, again, we have 10 projects that use existing digital technology, screens and devices to create completely different experiences. I'll go through them real quick. To start off, we have Am I Normal by Mika Orr, a project that explores the tele-video conferencing tools that we've all become so used to create a truly intimate documentary web series. And on the other side, on the web, we have Caroline Robert's Brainstream, a more speculative, interactive fiction inviting us to tune in to someone else's brain. In A Rest Guide for a Tired Nigerian Artist, Rahima Gambo explores how contemporary artists in Nigeria have been responding to the pandemic, while Victoria Meppelbeck's Testing Times invites us into the lives of 3 generations inside a family in London dealing with the lockdown. While the documentary Game, Gates of Aleppo takes us into a very specific moment in the ongoing war in Syria, 1/5 of the Earth's Surface by Hakim Adam and Maxwell Mutanda provides us a truly unique internet archive of the power structures connected to the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. The types of interaction inside the digital storytelling competition vary greatly. Each project has their own form. We have, for instance, Ravi and Emma that invites us to perform sign language in front of our webcam. And we have Unresolved by Tamara Shoalu that invites us to speak out the names of the people in the interactive documentary and the AR installation. Finally, we have Sue Rose Susan, introducing us to an artificial being that lives inside our computer. And on the completely other side, we have the performance installation by Lauren McCarthy, Surrogate, exploring her personal desire to let other people create new human beings using her body as a vessel for new parents controlled by an app. And that concludes the digital storytelling competition and brings us to the final section, DocLab Spotlight. Again, 10 projects selected here, various different forms and formats. I won't go through each of them individually, but the selection includes some of the best immersive projects presented throughout this year, as well as a very special live event presentation of the award-winning VR project Goliath. Then we also have 2 new full-dome films presented in the Artists Planetarium. We have a film screening with Donna Haraway in I, and we have the return of Jonathan Harris to IDFA's Tuschinski Cinema with his film In Fragments. Finally, the DocLab Spotlight includes live interactive theater experiences like TM by Ontroerend Goed, a one-on-one experience that you can do inside the exhibition, but also remotely from home. And we have the Playful Cycle Club, a 10-day hormone safari happening live inside Telegram throughout the festival, being launched on the 19th of November, online during our opening night event. And for those used to the annual DocLab conference, it will not be a one-day event this year, but it will be an event taking place across different live events running from the 19th up until the 24th. On that note, before I hand you over back to Orwa, I want to thank all our sponsors, all our partners, our R&D collaborations, and I want to say on behalf of Wotinke Vermeer, Jorinde Segal, Annabel Troost, everybody else in the DocLab team, I want to welcome you back to Amsterdam, hopefully, and otherwise see you online, see you on the 24th for a messy metaverse party. And on that note, Orwa, back to you.
Thank you, Casper. Thank you very much. It's exciting to see what's hidden for all of us in DocLab this year. And now we go on to tell you about the two main competitions at IDFA this year. If I'm to start with one observation of what's happening in the world of documentary film this year, it would be that, or it seems like, filmmakers and audience need to be connected more directly, that the mediation of festivals and exhibitors of various kinds, and also the media and critics, seems to be a bit slower than filmmakers and audience in moving forward to a different understanding of why we need to watch film, why we need to make film. It seems like the general atmosphere is still promoting only one kind of film that was celebrated as this is good film, this is a popular film, this is what we should be showing. Filmmakers are sometimes making something different. And the audience, when allowed to see that, discover that it might actually be what they were looking for, so much more than what they always are exposed to or what is being promoted all the time around them. This is why we created two competitions this year. We changed the program structure and we said it's two different currents, two different waves of film happening today. One is made up of a very mature moment in the history of documentary filmmaking. Documentary films are becoming more and more sophisticated, more and more masterful in their making. Observational documentary film is becoming astonishing. Journalistic documentary film is becoming more engaging, more thrilling than ever. So it is types of filmmaking that we know, but are actually reaching totally new platforms and new language, new maturity. And on the other hand, there's a whole massive wave of filmmaking that is breaking up with the tradition, that is trying to rethink why do we make film, why do we watch film, what is the use of film. This is where we created the Envision competition. In Envision competition, we will be celebrating this kind of film, and in international competition, we will be celebrating the more traditionally but very mature, high-quality kind of filmmaking. In the same line, all of the rest of the program of IDFA this year is woven into this idea, this concept. That's why our guest of honor is Hito Störl. Hito Störl is notably one of the most influential artists in the world. However, what matters to us the most from an IDFA viewpoint is the fact that Hito Störl was originally a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, that she started by studying film and studying documentary film in particular, and that she became then an artist or worked within the art world, but still is a very knowledgeable lover of documentary cinema. She knows so much about what's happening in documentary cinema, in new media. She follows up, and as a professor in the University of Art in Berlin, she's also always bringing or bridging documentary filmmaking with the practices of contemporary art. We will be showing one film of Hito Störl, and that is her graduation film, The Empty Center, Die leere Mitte. In that film, in 1998, a young Hito Störl examined what remains, the invisible walls that remain after the collapse of the wall, or the wall fell in Berlin. She looked at a city that is so diverse and at the same time deeply, deeply disconnected or disconnecting of the communities that live in it. This examination marked the rest of her career. And the fact that that film was premiered at IDFA in 1998 means so much to us because it is an opportunity to examine how open is the world of documentary film towards new talent that come with different language. Because after that film, Hito Störl moved on from the documentary world to the art world. And that's probably where, at the time, she found so much more freedom. This is an invitation to examine with her how open we are as film world towards the different, the courageous, the personal, and through that to find the limits of our formatting or our closed-mindedness in a way. In her top 10, as usual, this is an element, a basic element of IDFA every year, and I think is one of the most important elements. Every year, the guest of honor curates their own top 10 list, so they choose 10 films to show to our audience. These films are their favorite films, films that influenced them, films that they would like to show, or to share, or to discuss, or to think about. It's a way to meet Hito Stern by seeing the 10 films that she thinks we should watch. But it is also a very interesting experience for me and for us as programmers of this festival, because it brings a totally different viewpoint. The repertoire or the space from which Hito Stern chooses her top 10 is a bit different from the space we usually find ourselves stuck within. So it is also an interesting experiment in opening our own understanding and our own circle of vision. Our Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Artzavad Peleshian. This is an overdue homage to a great master of the art of documentary film. Peleshian has been making films since the 60s. His films shaped the experience or the language of so many filmmakers everywhere. Maybe even more notably, Peleshian's theory in editing, his approach to film editing, was significantly influential to the lives of so many filmmakers and film editors. It was very interesting to observe how many European filmmakers are keen on coming to IDFA this year in person because they would like to meet Peleshian in person. Peleshian is famous for his silence. Peleshian is famous for not talking about what he does. But he will be there, and we will honor his preference of silence, and we will tell him things rather than listen to him. We will watch the films, and we will talk to Peleshian, even if he doesn't want to tell us things back. The last film he made was 29 years ago, but now, surprisingly, wonderfully, he made a new film, and it is called Nature. We will be celebrating nature together with the producers of the film from Foundation Cartier in Paris, and we will be celebrating the oeuvre or the life's work of Peleshian in other screenings too. As usual, we have curated focus programs. It's 2 this year. First one I'm going to talk about is under the title Unconscious Bias. In Unconscious Bias, we are trying to think about colonial history in a different way, the IDFA way. We started 10 months ago now by thinking about the masterpiece of Johan van der Keuken, Amsterdam Global Village. It is 25 years that it was made this year, and we will be celebrating it with a big screening of a new copy. What van der Keuken did 25 years ago came in a way out of context. It was not fashionable yet to talk about multiculturalism. Nobody was creating abbreviations from diversity and inclusion and calling them D&I and creating departments and a whole business around them. Van der Keuken walked around the city of Amsterdam 25 years ago, and he showed us a city that is global. He showed us a city where the diversity is actually the identity of a city, rather than something happening to the city. So, from there, we carried on, and we found a great number of films that bring us this sense of where is that colonial history today, and where is the bias. It is not to go back and study colonialism itself. It is so much more about studying what remains of colonialism in our day now. The future tense is the second curated focus program. And here, we want to examine those many moments where documentary film looked at the future. This seems to be strange for a second because there's no science fiction in documentary. Science documentary is usually a straightforward kind of film that tells us about a scientific process or knowledge or information. In the future tense, we realize or we share what came out of a long process of looking at documentary film, that documentary film, through examining the present and the past, is actually telling us so much about the future. And in many different ways, sometimes in a direct prophetic way. In other times, the film itself is trying to examine what could the future be. Many different ways to look at this, but it is to say that future is already happening. It is in the present, it is in the past that we can see the future. Now, these two programs, Unconscious Bias was mainly overseen by our senior programmer, Laura van Helsema. The Future Tense was mainly overseen, curated by Sarah Dawson, IDFA programmer. And I think it is two exceptional programs that need a lot of, that will mean a lot of discovery for the audience and for everybody. In Best of Fest this year, which is IDFA's showcase of what's happening around the world, films which are out of competition at IDFA, but are examining what's the overview of what happened within a year in the documentary world. We will have so many award winners. It was clearly a very good year for documentary film. So when we look at these films in Best of Fest, we have the most celebrated, straightforward, direct filmmaking styles, and we have the most artistically challenging style. We have a big range, a wide spectrum of films, but overall, there's an image of the world, but there's also an image of documentary film as a very rich and far-reaching art form. I can just name a few titles. I would say Flee, Bigger Than Us, Courage, H6, I'm So Sorry, Herr Bachmann and His Class, A Night of Knowing Nothing, Taming the Garden, 3 Minutes, Velvet Queen. These are films that won awards and will continue to win awards around the world. These are films that go all the way from nature to climate, to politics, to human rights, to personal narratives, to examining different parts of this world so generously, so seriously, and also sometimes in a very fun way. After Best of Fest, we have Masters. Now again, I said this last year in the press conference, and I'm going to repeat it. It's very beautiful to see that when film and documentary film go through a rough patch like this year, go through a pandemic, the great filmmakers of this industry come to the rescue. They come to say, to show everyone that this art is necessary, that this art is worth it, that any governments, any politicians, anybody who would like to think that these are extra, that these are unnecessary elements of human life, they should just watch these films. And they will find out that it is absolutely necessary to add this value to our social experience. Here, we will see new works by the likes of Helena Treshtikova, Liz Karbus, Sergei Loznitsa, Andrei Ujika, Andrea Arnold, Marco Bellocchio. It's a long list of great filmmakers who made wonderful documentary films this year. Paradox is, as always, IDFA space for the intersection between art and documentary film. This is where art documentary become a great lineup of discoveries, of different language, of different search for the experience of film in different durations. It can be very short, it can be very long, but overall, it is films that push you back in your seat and invite you to slow down and go into a contemplative, even sometimes philosophical mode of receiving film. I can mention In the Billowing Night, Just a Movement, Bullet, A River Runs, Turns, Erases, Replaces, but the list is much longer than that, and it has already been published. Now, about these sections, I must note that today and over the coming couple of days, there will be additions to the programs, not already published, so please keep track and keep an eye on what's being added to the programs. Last year, we changed the name of our old children documentary competition. We called it Youth Documentary Competition. Youth because films here are targeting very young, but also young. So teenagers are also included and are a very important element of our offer and our audience now. In this program, we will have a number of exceptional films that will be made or suitable for different age groups of young audiences. Of course, next to that, there is all the work that our education team does on reaching out with documentary films of this kind, of this audience, to film schools, to students, and to teachers all across the Netherlands. We're very proud of this part of our work at IDFA, and we're very proud of the team that runs it, because they are reaching tens of thousands of children, and they are making documentary film a key element in the experience of children at school, and teenagers, of course. Now, I'll name the jury members here very briefly. This will be a wonderful jury made up of Ulla Hestrup, Edwin Mingard, and Eve Hilger. Short documentary films are the new big thing. We thought about that 10 years ago or so, when everybody was talking with the Web 2.0, and everybody was saying nobody wants to watch long content. And then gradually we felt a bit cynical out of the experience, because it didn't feel like short film was making it in that world. Although everybody thought, yeah, short films will work because of streaming, because of new formats. However, over the past 2-3 years, we can clearly see that a new way of looking at short film is emerging. More global initiatives for financing and for distribution, for streaming and for celebrating and awarding short films are emerging. Short film has always been a very good way of introducing new talent, but it also has its great masters who are very mature and experienced and seasoned, but they still always make short documentary film. This year's short documentary jury will be made up of American critic, writer, and film programmer Pamela Kohn, Dutch award-winning short filmmaker and artist Eliane Esterbotz, and Yemeni-Scottish Oscar-nominated filmmaker Sarah Ishaq. Frontlight is a non-competitive premiere section of IDFA. It is opposed to Luminous, and we consider this to be a dialogue between the two sections. Frontlight is a lineup of films that try to discover or that trace, explore the truth. It's films that can be investigating something. It's films that can be trying to explain something to us, help us understand a topic. It's films that take us, put us eye to eye with the reality we live in, with subject matters. Whereas Luminous is the lineup that is so much more experiential, where the experience of watching the film is about identification rather than understanding. So these are, of course, announced 2 weeks ago. You can find all the films on the website of IDFA. However, keep an eye, because many films here are among the best of the year, absolutely. So it is always this important thing to say, that when a film is out of competition or in competition, that is truly never a value judgment. It is a curatorial choice that is based on so many other elements. So do not feel that these are of any less space. They are actually exceptional lineups. Now, we have 3 different cross-section awards or competitions this year. First, best first feature, then best Dutch film, and then the best creative use of archive, the Beelden Geluid IDFA Reframe Award. These are so important because these 3 competitions do not have their own lineup. We handpick films from across all the sections of the program of IDFA to be nominated here, but these are films and acknowledgement of 3 different aspects. First feature film is a significant element in the career of a filmmaker. Celebrating first feature films means introducing and playing the role we need to be playing at IDFA in introducing new talent, sometimes it's not so new talent even. It is about moving also from short film and mid-length film to feature length, and feature length has its own value because it is in the economy of film, but also in the distribution lineups of film. First feature is the first step towards reaching the next step of a career. Dutch films do not have their own competition this year. It's not a lineup, but there is a competition that picks Dutch films from across all the sections. So there is a jury, there is a great lineup, and I must say that Dutch films this year are very good. There's an exceptionally good year for Dutch film. It is a very diverse in language, in style, and overall a truly impressive lineup for the Netherlands' own filmmaking. The Beelden Geluid Reframe Award at IDFA aims at examining openly and creatively how do filmmakers treat archival material and found footage. So this is not for archival films per se. This is for films that have a creative concept of making use of archival material or found footage. It can be actually just a minute, like in some examples, or 3 minutes in one example, that are archival. But then overall, when we look at what is the film, it can be many different things. It just needs to be based around or revolving around a piece of imagery and sound that is from the past, from somebody else's work, not the filmmaker's own work necessarily. Now, I'll just quickly introduce the juries of these 3 competitions. The jury for Best First Feature will be made up of Swiss filmmaker Jacqueline Zund, British critic and publisher Daniela Schreier, and Palestinian-Danish filmmaker Mahdi Fleifel. The jury for Best Dutch Film will be made up of Iranian film editor and filmmaker Farahnaz Sharifi, Dutch filmmaker Sasha Polak, and Austrian producer and artistic director Susanne Guggenberger. The archival competition Reframe Award will be judged by the great archival filmmaking master Maciek Drigas from Poland, the head of restoration at I-Institute Giovanna Fossati, and the award-winning sound designer and sound engineer for documentary film Pascal Capitolin. Here we go. So much more to say about all that is out of the competitions, but I will move on and take you to Envision competition. It is a very special inaugural edition of Envision competition, and we are celebrating it by presenting an exceptional, stellar jury. The jury that will judge the films I'm going to tell you about in a second will be made up of iconic Filipino filmmaker and artist Kidlat Tahimik, French artistic director Charlotte Serran, Lebanese renowned artist and filmmaker Akram Zatari, legendary film editor from the US, Joe Beanie, and finally, the wonderful, exceptional filmmaker of the UK, being Andrea Arnold. This jury will be watching the following films: The Burrows of Sanchuhu from China. Here's a very good example of envision. Who in this film goes back to his hometown, in a village or a small town in China, where there is this tradition that one has to build their own tomb before dying. So when you know it's coming soon, you have to take the responsibility and build your tomb, your own shrine. You need help. The community will help you. Family needs to help you. But it is on you to prepare the place where you will be buried. It's a very slow, contemplative film that looks at the experience of family members of the filmmaker while they are constructing, building their own tomb. It's a very slow process that is so philosophically constructed, that is so interesting. And while they are building their own tomb, there's a radio blaring all the time telling us about the great Chinese government accomplishment, the massive victory when the great government and its party totally destroyed the terrible virus and broke it all over and came out triumphant and heroic. From the Netherlands/Croatia, Darkness There and Nothing More, is Teja Tupacic experiment in encountering Dutch soldiers who were in Bosnia and Herzegovina during the Srebrenica massacre. The filmmaker herself has a personal history in this. She comes from there. She has her own memories. And as a young woman filmmaker, she invites them to a stylized space, puts each one of them with her face to face on a stage in the middle of nowhere, on a theatrical stage surrounded by blackness, but sit down throughout a night and talks to them, puts her eye in their eyes and talks to them. And these dialogues she creates with this stylization choice tell us so much about what happened in Bosnia at the time, what happens today, what is the share of the Netherlands in this experience, but also takes us a bit more, transcends the whole story even wider to a space of examining womanhood, threat, the sense of danger, and much more. It's a film that's truly worth watching. From the US, we have this exceptional film, Eat Your Catfish. This is a film in which one of the three filmmakers, Noah Arjomand, fixes a small camera on the top of the wheelchair of his mother, who has ALS. The mother is incapable of talking anymore. She uses a machine to talk, or she tries to. There is the father, there is the son, there are the rest of the family, there are the friends. It is a stylistic choice that is so radical, but at the same time risky, because when you decide to make a film all within a wide lens view from one GoPro kind of camera on a wheelchair, a POV of a person who is stuck within their own body, that can be a dangerous experiment. But it works so well in this film that it becomes a very engaging experience of seeing the world from her own viewpoint, meeting the family, seeing how difficult it is for her, but then also the kind of challenge that the rest of the family go through. Next film comes from France/Cambodia. Neri Adeline Hay makes her film Escape. In Escape, she's trying to examine her mother's experience, getting her children out of Cambodia in the early 80s. Escaping the Khmer Rouge, escaping the reality of a country that was truly very difficult to survive within, and choosing to go the route out of the country to end up in France, trying to seek safety equal opportunity, but then to grow up in France in this context, haunted by the stories of your family's escape, of your childhood escaping, and to go back to Cambodia for the filmmaker to understand that journey, to understand what happened, to reconstruct the trip that her mother took with her as a baby. From Panama, Pilar Moreno and Ana Endara Mislov made us a beautiful film. Now, the title is, For Your Peace of Mind, Make Your Own Museum. Here, there was this woman, the story goes, in a village in Panama, who decided a while ago to turn her own home into a museum for all living species. It's her home, her house, her kitchen, her living room, her own spaces that she started to turn into a museum. The woman passed away. But what does this space, this place, this museum mean to our world today? Celebrating all species, celebrating a woman who took initiative and created a museum of her own. And then what the filmmakers do is that they invite the elderly women of the village to dress up like in the same clothing in the photography of the founder of the museum, to sit inside her spaces, to read us passages of what she wrote. It's a kind of magical realism, how we start to see the connections between the experience of that defiant, strong, wonderful, formidable woman and all of these elderly women today living around the same space. The parallels are many, but it also invites us to think about, again, womanhood and also the position of humans within the context of nature, the context of all species, as she called it. From Syria comes Nidal El-Dips. It's a Syrian-Egyptian film with the title Homemade Stories. Nidal Dips is a known Syrian filmmaker who made a lot of fiction works, some documentary films before, and now, after 10 years since he had to leave Syria and moved with his family to Egypt, something needs to be revisited. Something needs to be reconstructed so that one's own dignity, one's own experience has shape. It's the story of someone who was trying to renovate his home in Damascus, but then left it as is and left so many precious things there, so many memories, but so many objects, left a project of making the home better and moved to another country to start again. It is the story of a family, of a child growing within this context, of the love of a couple and their daughter. It is also looking at film and its place. Nidal Dips is a cineclub guy. In Syria, he was always connected to experiences of creating cineclubs, film societies. He was always watching films. And when he went to Egypt, he found out that there's a similar parallel reality there, where the art house cinema is abandoned, almost destroyed, and a group of Egyptian filmmakers and film lovers are trying to reconstruct it, to restore it. The dream of bringing back the art house cinema and the reality that this is not the priority of anybody in the world other than film lovers, and that film lovers in such context have no power, becomes a metaphor for something much bigger. OK Hogendijk has 2 films in our program this year, which is exceptional. This prominent, renowned Dutch filmmaker made a personal film, which I find to be an exceptional discovery, an exceptional experiment, that her career, her filmography is always made up of very well-made, well-knitted, well-presented films about external subject matters. This time, she's going internal. She's turning her camera and her own process to her mother. Her mother, who is an elderly Auschwitz Holocaust survivor, living in her own home in the Netherlands, watching TV a lot, but on TV she doesn't watch what we would expect. She actually watches a lot of images filmed from trains. There's something here that is so valuable about the reconnection between a daughter and a mother, but also about the meaning of survival, about the meaning of loneliness, of getting older. It is a very heartwarming and often funny film about a heartbreaking subject. Penny Andrea was always drawing sketches. For throughout her life, she's an artist, but she had a sketchbook that served as her diary in a way. So when she got a special kind of a brain tumor at some point recently, she was hospitalized, and she was surprised that she didn't understand, when did this happen? How did this grow? This enemy growing in my own brain, at what moment did it enter? How did it start? How did it change me, or didn't it? And what Andrea does is that she goes through her sketches over the years of an entire life to start and look for those moments that she didn't realize at the time a tumor is starting up in her brain. She thought she will find the signs in the sketches, that she will observe those moments of change. It is looking at one's brain, one's memory. It is about art. It is a radical kind of film that is visually all made of her sketches, with her voiceover taking us over her memory, her experience, and her present challenge. Gladly, she will be here, and we are very happy that we will also do a special screening of Locks, Keys, Water, Trees as part of the IDFA on Stage event, where her own voiceover will actually be presented by her personally live on stage. Diego Gutierrez made The Mirror and the Window. This is one of the most sobering films of the year, I think. A very dear friend, and that is the prominent late Israeli, Netherlands-based Israeli film editor Daniel, who passed away a couple of years ago, and the filmmaker's own mother in Mexico. They were both knowing they're about to die, and the filmmaker needed to talk to them both. What brings these two characters together is actually only the importance of each one of them to the filmmaker. The filmmaker talks to two beautiful human beings who realize what's coming and who invite us into a most interesting contemplation of the notion of life, the notion of meaning, the notion of death, memory, losing it. It's a very special film. Also from the Netherlands, Pim Svier makes O Collecting Eggs Despite Time. This is a surprise film. Must say that it's nowhere near expected in any sense of the word, to the extent that I almost don't want to tell you about it, but I will try. What Svier does is that he examines the letters of one extremely important scientist of eggs. So this German scientist worked late 30s until the 50s and created the world's reference collection of eggs of very different creatures. And later on, this science does not really exist in its practical form because it's not allowed to collect wild eggs anymore. His collection is still in a university museum in Germany, but the film looks at this collection and then discovers through the letters of this scientist the whole history of a very peculiar angle towards World War II, towards German history and European history. What was it like to be drafted as a Nazi soldier and go to the front line, but be there, not thinking about Nazis, not thinking about victims, just thinking, how can I escape and go collect the eggs of those birds on the other side, because that's all I can think about. What would happen when Berlin falls, when life changes, when economy in Germany breaks up totally? How does that experience seem to us from the viewpoint of this seemingly obsessive lover of one particular thing? It's a very, very singular film. Octopus comes from Lebanon. This is Karim Qasem, a Lebanese filmmaker, examining the terrible, the shock wave of the recent incident in Beirut over a year ago now, when there was a massive explosion that killed many and destroyed a lot, didn't leave a single glass standing in the city of Beirut. What Karim Qasem does in Octopus is quite courageous in the sense that he creates a film that is very hybrid. It's a very fabricated documentary in a way, because he wants to reconstruct or to create this symbolism, this metaphorical moment of shock. He doesn't leave us there. He does find a way for us as viewers to be a little hopeful, but in principle, he creates an image of a city in shock, a society in shock. It's baffling. It's like nothing else when you just suddenly see a history of corruption explode like what happened in Beirut. You can't believe that it can get so bad to the extent that this can happen. He portrays this in a very strong way. From South Africa comes Lindiwe Matshikiza with her film One Take Grace. I think this is a very special film because it is, in a way, it's liberated from every film rule. The filmmaker is portraying her friend, who is an aspiring actress, and there's so much more. I will not tell you too much about the film, but there's something about the freedom, the artistic freedom of the filmmaker here that makes me stand for this film, defend it, and really hope everybody watches it. There's no respect to rules. There's a mix, a melange of stylistic tendencies in this film that theoretically should not work, but it truly does. From Argentina, Virna Molina creates Portraits of the Future. Now here is a heavy, heavy dose of film. Molina has worked a lot on the subject of unions in Argentina. So she's always a very politically engaged filmmaker, documenting what's happening to the union movements in her country. And then comes, when she was working on that topic again, comes the pandemic. And she finds herself stuck in her home with her computer, with her footage. And she creates us this essayistic take on the world today. It is her contemplation on philosophy, on economy, on rights, on unions, but also her own womanhood. It is a film that is so rhythmically interesting, that is, in a way, like a sculpture in metal. And I think you'll always hear the sound of the knocking on the metal during the film. It is a very personal, singular kind of film that you finish, and then you feel like, I need to watch it again, I think. Finally comes from Brazil. Marcos Pimentel made us this beautiful film called Skin. In a city in Brazil, there's so much graffiti. But what Pimentel makes is that he examines the city, its image, its street, its buildings, its people, through this concept that is very coherent throughout the film, very consistent. It is the skin of the city that has all of this ink on it. That's it for our Envision competition, and now we will head to international competition. The jury that will watch the films in international competition and judge is going to be made up of critic Jessica Kiang, distributor Ryan Krivoshe, producer and festival director Elena Fortes, producer Arne Birkenstock, and critic and festival programmer and distributor Claire Diao. First comes from Italy, Libya, Giovanni Boccomino's film After a Revolution. This is a film that has been in the making for a very long time, and when you watch it, you will see why. It is an examination or a journey of two persons, a wonderful woman and her brother from Libya, experiencing the revolution, the war, and the ensuing situation of that country. To make this film, the Italian filmmaker collaborated very closely with Libyan filmmaker Naziha Aribi. They worked together. She is a producer on the film. And here we look at a woman who was a fighter for a moment, a woman who's trying to find her place within a war, who's trying not to accept that war means that women should be put aside, stay at home, prepare the food for the fighters when they come back. Her brother, on the other hand, and this brotherly love, this relationship between two siblings that the film takes us, carries us with, is so beautiful, moving, in the context of a devastating political and social situation in the country. From Ecuador, Ivan Mora Manzano made The Beach of Enchiquirados. Sorry, it's sometimes. Ivan Mora Manzano is also a cinematographer, and this shows beautifully in this film, because it is a film that is so beautifully made, so smoothly constructed, and it basically plants us on a beach in Ecuador with a wonderful protagonist who is a trans woman fisher. Between this harsh, challenging job of fishing, being a fisher person, and the actual life of a trans person in this society there, the community around, the people on the beach, we are planted there. We go through this aesthetic, but also very political portrait of a space and the people who live in it, and we just simply cannot forget the protagonist, I think, for a very long time after watching this film. From Vietnam, Diem Halle made Children of the Mist. Now, this is a film about a 12-year-old girl from a tribe or an ethnic group in Vietnam where young age marriage is the standard, is the norm, but she is strong enough to think about it, to stand against the whole process that is so ancient, so deeply entrenched in her society, in her community's life, and find a way to say, I'm not sure this is what I want. Next is Kamar Ahmad Simon's Day After. Bangladeshi filmmaker Kamar Ahmad Simon is already known for his previous works. In this film, which is in a way part of a bigger project, this is the second film in what he calls the Water Trilogy. In Day After, Ahmad Simon takes us into a steamer, a boat, a transport boat that takes people from Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, to it's a kind of an omnibus to travel around the country from the seaside. On this big boat that is very old and worn out a bit, all society can be seen. It is a kind of a multiple classes, multiple backgrounds, multiple approaches to life, people from different parts of the country too. They're all there. And there he stays so patiently with his observational camera, and magic happens, the magic of documentary film, where we can see a whole study of a community, of a society that in many ways transcends its own space and can be seen as sometimes even a study of global economy, a study of class in the world today, a study of our relationship with the other. It is an exceptionally interesting film that's going to make everyone laugh and also think. It's quite an engaging film. The Delights from Argentina is Eduardo Crespo's examination of what you would call an agro-technical school. It is a boarding school in Argentina where young kids are living and studying at the same time. It's so heartwarming, it's so beautifully made that you can only imagine the relationship between young people growing and nature and animals, and then you just have to identify with those beautiful teachers who take care of them in the school. The teachers in the school are sometimes motherly, sometimes fatherly. They have to make sure that we know where is the missing telephone, for example. There's a whole line in the film where we have to find where is the telephone, and we never find out where is the telephone. Is it stolen? But while we get lost with this little plot there about a stolen or a missing telephone, we find ourselves living there, identifying with them and with the teachers, and imagining life in a totally different way from the viewpoint of youngsters in nature. Click. Okay. I'm sorry, I think it will work. Oh, that's a lot of... No, something went missing here. I'm sorry for the technical... I'm very sorry for the technical problem. Yes. From Georgia, Ketevan Kapanadze made How the Room Felt. Here is another exceptionally engaging observational film of the daily life of a community of LGBTQ persons in Georgia. They created their own community. Football and their football club is their own kind of communal experience of being together, supporting each other. They created a safe space, but we can certainly feel the pressure all around them. Georgia is not the most welcoming country for LGBTQ, but they are there, and they have each other. It is a deeply moving, sometimes sad, but overtly inspiring story of creating your own community and your own safety net through friendship. Portuguese master filmmaker Susana de Sousa Dias, together with Ansgar Schäfer, made this astonishing film. Journey to the Sun is, as most of the works of Susana de Sousa, is an archival film. But here, what she does is that she introduces us to a part of Europe's contemporary history or recent history that we never heard of. The story goes like, after World War II, right after, there was so much poverty in Austria that many children from the countryside were in bad health because of all the explosions and the bombings and so on, and they were so poor that they had to be foster homed in the prosperous, comfortable, rich country of Portugal. And this seems to be opposite to how we see things today. But this is only 75 years ago that these kids, these children, were transported to Portugal to find new families to take care of them so that they can get better health, they can be taken care of, and then go back. This history is marked by so much home film, home footage from these families in Portugal who were prosperous enough to have cameras even in the late 40s. And today, these women and men, these young children, are still living, but in Austria. And the filmmaker can still see what that experience was like and where are they today. What Susana de Sousa Dias and Ansgar Schäfer do in this film is that they first shake our own prejudice of what Europe is and how the relationship between different countries is. But then They take us out of the continent and its context entirely into a place where it's a film on the universality of xenophobia, the universality of feeling superior to those in need. It is heartbreaking, but it also is very interesting to see that it's not even about color, that it's not even about continents or ethnicities or religions, that it can actually be much more primary than that, that it is a problem that we need to look at separately from the other problems. We are celebrating the world premiere of Sergei Loznitsa's new magnum opus. Mr. Landsbergis is the founder of modern Lithuania. He is the engineer of the independence of Lithuania from the Soviet Union. And by that, he is one of the leaders, one of the most influential persons who personally had a role in the fall of the Soviet Union, one may say. In this 4 hours, 20 minutes film, Loznitsa is reconstructing the story of how Landsbergis and his colleagues and his Lithuanian movement negotiated and creatively found their solutions and their ways to guarantee that their country gets independence in the glasnost era with Mikhail Gorbachev. So Gorbachev on one hand, Landsbergis on the other, and how did Landsbergis manage, in a way, to fool the Soviet system and guarantee that Lithuania becomes independent? We're very happy that we're going to welcome Mr. Landsbergis at IDFA this year. Now, here's a film that is exciting also, because it's a film from a filmmaker. I don't think we believe we had films of Kinyuan Lee before at IDFA, but this film is such a discovery. The One Who Runs Away is the ghost. The filmmaker is Chinese, Berlin-based. She goes back to her hometown in China, where she, as a child herself, grew up in her family's electronics store. And she goes to this kind of mall or shopping center where there are two young girls. Their family started an electronics store in this mall. And the two girls were not in school. They're only going about living their life in this space of this mall. I don't know how to see it. It's a story of youth. It's a story of sisterhood. It's a story of global economy too. It's a story of making a home in the most unfamiliar, unfriendly space. That's how the two kids look at this cold, terribly uninteresting space around them, and they fill it with imagination. It just comes to life in their own heads, in their own experience. They don't need it to be interesting. They make it interesting. That's their own imagination that makes that possible. From Mali comes Tamaden. I think Tamaden means traveler. Here we have a story that takes place, or a film that takes us to both sides of the Mediterranean, to Spain and to Africa, to West Africa. And we spent time with African youth preparing themselves to cross the sea, but then also with African youth already in Europe, trying to find a place for themselves. The film takes us to the experiences, the spiritual aspect of these experiences. It takes us to a place where these young men in this film are trying to stay connected with a spiritual thread to their own home, or to their base sense of home. And that is full, of course, of a lot of religious thought, or even superstition, and different ancient practices that are unique to their own culture, and to the fact that they need to protect that even when they get to Europe and they live in a totally different context, they cannot lose that thread They have to keep protecting it. This thread with home gets this translation or this manifestation with these beliefs. In the photo, we see the protagonist of the film when he is preparing himself to cross the sea. He goes through a ceremony where he has to put milk on himself and break an egg in the sea. Saeed Taji Farouki is a Palestinian-British filmmaker, and he goes and takes us to Myanmar in 1,000 Fires. Now, this is a portrait of a couple, of a family, living in a region of Myanmar where people, I forgot the word, take oil from the ground by hand, where the oil industries do not really exist. It's a simple people's business to extract oil from the ground. And in these very harsh job of doing that, we spent time discovering so much about that society, its economy, this family, about love and resilience. The filmmaker creates a poetic portrait of something that is so harsh economically. And then, of course, the pandemic comes, and the context, the economic context, the geopolitics of all of the oil of Myanmar, of the relationship with China, of the pandemic, everything starts to be surrounding of these couple while they are doing this very hard job of just by hand taking water from the ground, taking oil from the ground. It's a brilliant film that I'm sure the audience will enjoy very much. Dutch master filmmaker Aliona van der Horst comes back with a new film. Turn Your Body to the Sun is the story of a Russian-Dutch writer looking for her father, who was in World War II fighting on the Soviet army, but then was a prisoner of war by the Nazis, and then he tried to find his way to help the Allies from that place, and ended up in the Gulag in Siberia. This is the story, but what van der Horst does is a few steps further than simply or merely making a story. What she does is that she goes searching, I would say excavating, the archives of 2 million men who served in the Soviet army against the Nazis and were taken as prisoners of war by the Nazi army. These 2 million men are a forgotten story of World War II, because when, at the end of the war, Churchill and Stalin met, Churchill said to Stalin, "What do we do with these 2 million? We don't want them." And Stalin said, "Yeah, but they're prisoners of war. They chose to be prisoners, not to die. This means they are traitors. I don't want them either." And these 2 million ended up in the gulags. This forgotten story is what she digs for, but she doesn't just dig for the story, she digs for the human experience, and she treats the archival footage in such an intimate way that makes us see the eyes and the simple facial expressions of such prisoners of war in moments when the whole world was feeling that they are a burden and somebody should just help us get rid of them. I wonder what remains in our collective experience today of a story of 2 million men that we all forgot. I'm sure it didn't just disappear. From France, Claudine Boris and Patrice Chaniat made a film with an exceptional, a formidable protagonist. The protagonist is Vedette. Vedette is a cow, an elderly cow. She's mature, she's now towards the end of her life. She lives in a farm where her owners are always thinking of her as a friend. They have photos of her in different ages, and they realize that she's getting old too, like they are in a way. It is a film on friendship. It is a film that takes us way further from meat factories, from the questions of the food industries, and plants us in an experience where we are friends. And Vedette is a family member, and she has always been like that. From Russia, Ruslan Fedotov made a film with the title, Where Are We Headed? Now, this is one of the IDFA birth-supported films in the program, and there are a couple, such as the Vietnamese film we already mentioned, Children of the Mist. Ruslan Fedotov, in his first feature-length film, spends a whole year in the metro network of Moscow. A very talented cinematographer himself, spent a year portraying contemporary Russia, portraying its social experience, its political experience, its calendar, in a way, over a whole year in the exceptional metro system of a city that is most famous for its metro. It is at times fun, at times painful, and it certainly presents an exceptional talent. I'm almost done. I hope it was not too long. The opening film of IDFA this year comes from the new Envision competition. Envision, that I presented, was missing one film. And now we will tell you about it. Four Journeys of Louis Louis Yi Liu, is a film from the Netherlands, a film from China, is one of the most interesting films of this year's program, and it is a surprising debut of a filmmaker to wait for. In this film, Louis, who is an illegal second child of the one-child policy in China, has been living in Amsterdam for 7 years already now, when he was making the film. And he has been going on visits to his parents back home. There's so much that is particular to China, but at the same time that is exceptionally universal in the story of feeling you are the extra one, you are the risk, you are the problem, and trying to reconstruct the memory of a family and to deal with the collective trauma that a system like that of the one-child policy can impose on a family experience. It is made with such talent, in my opinion, that I believe this filmmaker, this upcoming filmmaker, this young talent, has digested so much from the language of cinema that he can bring in so many different elements, that he can bring in the vocabulary of this language we call cinema. And he makes cinema just like I talk, just maybe a little better. So I'm looking forward to introducing Four Journeys to the world. I'm looking forward to introducing this filmmaker to the world, because I have no doubt he will keep on surprising us with more and more films. He starts with this personal story between the Netherlands and China. He starts with this film, with this introduction of his talent, and IDFA is exactly the place where we would like to celebrate that kind of introduction. So, that's it, and wish you all a lovely, beautiful IDFA, a healthy and safe IDFA. Please keep an eye on our website so that you always know what are the COVID-19 regulations. They are changing, and we have to keep an eye on them. We're very optimistic that we will be able to make the festival we're planning, that we will make it safely together, and that we will do anything we need to do to guarantee that it is as safe as possible. Last but not least, I want to thank the team of IDFA, Kees van Tullenaar, Executive Director, Isabella Rate Fernandez, Deputy Director and Director of IBF, the program team, Sarah, Joost, Laura and Raoul, and the program producers, and everybody on this team, the industry team headed by Edric van Nieuwhausen, the development department team, communication team, who did a huge job until we are at this moment and still have a long road to go, production team, everybody at IDFA who did a massive job for 2 years in a row, and we will get it there. We will finally thank our sponsors and partners, whose names are on the screen now, and welcome them and everybody else to join us at IDFA 2021. Thank you.